Man, I was reading the comments in the North Korea video, and you guys brought up some things I wanted to deal with real quick, and I had to look into it. I'll be honest with you, some of the stuff you guys brought up I wasn't aware of. There were two issues: satellites and submarines. The satellite issue we'll deal with first. It can be dealt with pretty quickly and has a more interesting twist to it. North Korea has two satellites in orbit around Earth, as you guys know, most of you. They're in a north-south orbit. You know, they're going from pole to pole instead of around the equator. They're both called Shining Star. One is Shining Star 3, the other is Shining Star 4. Shining Star 3 appears to be defunct. It's tumbling in orbit. It never got a stabilized orbit, even when they launched it. They never got it stable. So there's really, it's no good. There's nothing it can do in that tumbling orbit. It's worthless. It's dead. Shining Star 4, when it first launched, the early reports that it too was tumbling, that it was in an unstable orbit. Apparently it stabilized later on, and they retracted that statement. It's a small satellite. It's about, 1/5 the size of kind of the standard American satellites. It's probably not big enough to have a nuclear weapon on it. But the twist is that it's never been caught broadcasting. No one's ever picked up any signals from it. It's never sent any information back to Earth. So either it failed, even though it got a stable orbit. It never did what it was designed to do, or it was never designed to do anything except achieve a stable orbit, or it is a weapon that represents a very significant and hitherto unknown advance in North Korean weapons capabilities. And if that's the case, then in my oh so humbled opinion, it's a Chinese weapon that they launched in order, to hide it as a North Korean satellite. In my mind, if there's a threat from Shining Star 4, if it is something other than just a defunct North Korean satellite that never turned on and started working, that means it's a Chinese weapon that they're hiding in a North Korean satellite. That to me is interesting or ominous. But that's the only way Shining Star 4 is a threat, is if China has put some sort of stealth, secret weapon up there under the North Korean flag. But if it's solely a North Korean thing, it's not really a threat. The submarines were a different story, though, and I didn't know this about their submarine fleet. I knew they had the small mini-subs, and I knew that they used those frequently to insert spies and agents and whatnot into South Korea. I did not realize that they had a 70 submarine fleet of full-size subs. Now, these are all actual Soviet cast-offs or replicas of Soviet cast-offs, or through China, some of them. Some of them are Soviet, some of them are China, but the Chinese are copies of Soviet designs. There's the Whiskey class. I believe they have 20 of the Whiskey class, which is a really old boat. It's actually the original design was like World War II, or right after World War II. And then they captured some German scientists. The Soviets captured some German scientists and some actual U-boats, and they used the U-boats to improve their submarines. That tells you how old these submarines are. But the U-boats were an effective submarine, so that's not to dismiss them. It's just to point out that this is a really old design. Then they have more that are of the Romeo class, somewhere around 40 or 50 that are Romeo class. I may have that switched. It may be more Whiskey, less Romeo, but it's the Whiskey and the Romeo. The Romeo is a newer sub, but not by much. It's kind of like the difference between a T-55 and a T-72. It's not a huge. That might be a bad. It may be more like a T-64 and a T-72. These not. The Romeo does not represent a gigantic leap forward over the Whiskey. In fact, the Whiskey may have a longer range. But that's the point here. They both are capable of getting off our coast. I think one has a a 9,000 kilometer or 9,000 nautical mile range, and the other has a 12,000 nautical mile range. So they can get from North Korea to the west coast of America. They can't get back without a resupply. North Korea does not have the capability of resupplying their submarine to get it back. So this would be a one-way trip. Not sure that that would be a deterrent to them, but you know, it sort of lessens the threat a little bit. So they can get a submarine from North Korea to the shores of America. And those submarines are capable of launching missiles. Now, North Korea still doesn't have the ability to miniaturize nuclear weapons and get them on a missile unless they can get something, you know, that they can get on sort of some sort of short flight. You know, if they got a missile that can take a bigger payload a shorter distance. I haven't been able to find anything about that. So, is there a threat from the North Korean submarines? Yes, they can get a submarine to our shores, which means they can deliver a nuclear device to our shores. They still can't get a nuclear device high enough up into orbit to cause an EMP. You know, I think the worst they could do is smuggle a nuclear device onto land somewhere and just blow it up somewhere on the west coast. Bad enough. I'm not dismissing that as no big deal, but I don't think they can get an EMP up. So their submarines are a threat, but not necessarily a credible threat. This changes nothing in my mind. I mean, deposing the North Korean regime is in America's best national interest. I don't think we have to do it. I think China will do it for us. You know, North Korea is just a colony of China. Right? You will not be able to convince me that North Korea is not just a satellite state of China. In fact, I think the reason Kim Jong-un assassinated his brother a few months ago was to make sure the Chinese couldn't use him as a replacement for Kim, since he was the older brother and everything, and if they really needed to shake things up in North Korea or make a splash on the world stage, they could quietly depose Kim Jong-un and bring in the brother, Kim Jong, whatever he was, Moon or Mill or Mike or Harry, I don't remember. So there we go. The satellites and the submarines are interesting. They do raise, in my opinion, North Korea's capacity to threaten us, obviously, because now there is a way. There is a way for them to get a nuclear device to our homeland, certainly Hawaii and also our west coast. I still don't think it's a credible threat, and I still think China will never let it come to that because China cannot afford a confrontation with America over North Korea. China would lose too much face. It would show too clearly the disparities between our two power levels. China just can't face off against us in the sea. You know, they might be able to make an invasion really, really expensive, but why would we invade them? We don't have to invade them. We just have to drive their navy back into their ports, and we could do that in a matter of days. So China is gonna handle North Korea. Like I said, this is all about trade deals and diplomacy and negotiations and getting leverage and advantage and everything. And this one's going to blow over. And the one that gets us, you know what they say, you never heard the one that you never hear the one that gets you. We're not going to see the one coming that gets us. You know, if we have this kind of warning, we could stop it. The one that gets us, it's going to catch everyone by surprise. So there you go, guys. Appreciate your time.